In the spring of 1974, after the 67s were eliminated from the playoffs in the first round, Leo Boivin stepped down after 2 seasons as coach. A longtime minor league hockey player who had been linked to the job when Boivin was hired was awarded the assignment. His name, Brian Kilrea.
I remember when he was running the Embassy restaurant there at Bank and Spark, and he'd say, you know, how can anybody have a better job than what I have? You know, I played pro hockey, loved it. Now I'm meeting the public, I love people, I love it. And then he steps in as a coach of an OHA team. And he says the same thing, how can anybody have a better job than this? Like everything he seemed to go to, it was the best thing that ever could happen to anybody.
Right away, you wanted to play for him. You know, he was a very knowledgeable coach, very upbeat, but he also is almost part of the team, you know what I mean? He fit right in.
There was little fanfare in the hockey world the day Brian Kilrea was hired to coach the Ottawa 67s, but little did anyone know that just 3 years later, the 67s would play in the Memorial Cup final, and that a junior hockey legend had been born. Coming up, an unlikely hero ends a Memorial Cup marathon. In the spring of 1972, the Ottawa 67s were on a roll. Michel Blunny-Larocque was at the top of his game, leading the league in shutouts and goals against average, and guiding the 67s to within 1 game of a berth in the OHA Championship. The team, led by Ottawa natives on and off the ice, was popular with local fans.
The 67s really captured the hockey fan at the time, you know, going into a playoff and things like that. And of course we had local guys, Rosie Tiro was a GM, and Leo Boivin coached him in '72, so it wasn't totally surprising, but it was more, if you consider it more of a local club.
In an 8-point semifinal series against Oshawa, the 67s were just 1 point away with the team returning home to the Civic Center. Larocque stole the show again, recording his 4th playoff shutout. In front of the largest crowd in the team's history, the 67s advanced to the league final for the first time. After the 67's Memorial Cup win of 1984, Brian Kilrea was in high demand. He was linked to NHL coaching jobs in Toronto, Chicago, and New York. His choice was the Stanley Cup champion Islanders. The plan? Kilrea would spend 2 seasons as an assistant under Al Arbour, then become the head coach when Arbour retired. But because of a contentious issue between Kilrea and the team's management, the coach left the island for good.
They wanted me to live in the island, and I said, no, I live in Ottawa, but I'll coach now. And whoever was going to coach there had to live there. And my decision was, I'm living here in Ottawa.
The Islanders made a huge mistake when they didn't hand over the reins to Brian Kilrea. The Islanders would have been a much different organization from '88 on, or from '86 on, I guess, at that time. I think if Brian Kilrea had been the coach, we still had a mature team. We had a team that had won 4 Stanley Cups. We were slowly starting to rebuild with Pat LaFontaine, Pat Flatley, some younger players. Brian Kilrea, I think, would have been a great pro coach, but I think that whole situation in Long Island soured him because politics took over rather than what should have been. And he came back and, as expected, had an unbelievable career as a coach in junior.
The 67s just happened to be looking for a coach in 1986, and Kilrea once again took the reins. Many would be surprised to learn that in the history of the Ottawa 67s, only 2 players have won the OHL's Rookie of the Year award, Bruce Cassidy and Andrew Castles. But Castles won another award as a 17-year-old rookie in 1987, Team MVP.
He was picked by his peers, by his teammates, as the best player on the team. And that when he came here as a 17-year-old, that was my first year with the hockey club. And Andrew, I can remember probably our first scrimmage, Brian saying to me, "I really like that kid."
He's the only player ever that came in here as a rookie, and for 3 years in a row won the most valuable player, voted by the players. That tells you a lot about his talent, his first year, and how he improved.
After his rookie campaign with the 67s, Castles was drafted in the first round by the Montreal Canadiens. The following year, he posted one of the best campaigns in the team's history, a 155-point effort that was 18 clear of his closest OHL rival. After 3 standout seasons, Castles stepped up to the NHL, where he would play in over 1,000 career games. In the spring of 1971, the 67s were still looking for the first playoff series win in the team's history. They were matched up in the first round against Hamilton, and after 2 games, the teams were tied with a win apiece. Little did anyone know something spectacular was about to occur. In games 3, 4, and 5, Michel "Bunny" Larocque stopped every shot the Red Wings fired his way. His shutout streak lasted an incredible 193 minutes.
When Bunny came to play, he was every particle, every atom in his body was ready to play, and he got sick at times during the game, nervous stomach and things of that nature, but he would always battle through, and I think in many ways he was the kind of goaltender that you dream of, because once you have him back there, you don't worry about that. You worry about things you need to do on the ice, and that's what I think you want to attempt at building a team, is that everybody is responsible for their own piece of the ice and have confidence in the guys around you, and I think Bunny gave that confidence to all of us.
Led by Larocque's brilliant play, the 67s advanced to the second round for the first time in the team's history. Halfway through the 2004-2005 season, the Ottawa 67s were underachieving, barely hanging on to a playoff position in the East. But even though the team was struggling, they knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel.
We saw the opportunity that year from the beginning when we saw that London was going to host the Memorial Cup. We knew that as long as we could get out of the Eastern Conference, we would get ourselves a bye to the Memorial Cup, so long as London won their side.
To bolster his team at the trade deadline, Brian Kilrea acquired defenseman Brad Staubitz from Sault Ste. Marie. At first glance, a deadline deal that nets a 4-year veteran with 10 career goals does not seem like a major move. But Staubitz possessed what the team was lacking.
Here's Killer again having an eye for talent, an eye for something that's missing on his hockey club, and he does it pretty well every year. If some little ingredient's missing that he needs to push them past, he gets it. Brad Staubitz was that.
Buoyed by the Staubitz trade, the 67s got hot. While they finished 6th in the Eastern Conference, in the playoffs, it was a different story. They rolled over Barrie, Sudbury, and heavily favored Peterborough to advance to the Memorial Cup. That set up one of the greatest nights in the career of 67's veteran goalie Danny Bottaccio, the opening game of the 2005 Memorial Cup versus Kelowna.
I don't know if I've ever seen a better game by a goaltender for a full, whatever, 75 minutes or 80 minutes it took.
Probably is the most spectacular game performance I've ever seen.
I don't think I did anything special or anything, extraordinary. Like, in any case, it was just, try to stop as many pucks as you can.
Bottaccio faced a Memorial Cup record 62 shots. Only 2 got past him. His brilliance, especially in overtime, provided the opportunity for one of the 67 skaters to become a hero.
Staubitz scores! Brad Staubitz wins the Memorial Cup Marathon for Ottawa.
I remember that play like yesterday almost. I knew right away, I had a good feeling that as soon as the stick was in the air and he got the pass there, that puck was going.